Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I am the host of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, a show right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we take a deep look at individual issues and stories that are going on in the wrestling world. Each episode is about a different topic, and we take a thorough and educated look at things ranging from current booking trends to breakdowns on individual performers and angles to investigations into different fan cultures across the industry. In addition, we keep a close eye on the wrestling media, and as a professional journalist, I bring a unique perspective to how current issues in wrestling are being covered and discussed through the wrestling media. We have a revolving series of guests from across wrestling punditry joining us on each episode, and we hope that you make the choice to give us a listen on wherever you get your podcast from.
You compare prices when shopping for flights, hotels, cars, so why not small business insurance? At Simply Business, we'll show you policies that fit your business and a range of prices to help you save. Who knew buying insurance could be so simple? Visit simplybusiness.com for your free quote today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Music of the Mat Remix, right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I'm your host, Andrew Rich, joined today by a first-time guest here on the show. He is one of the hosts of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungy podcast, which is also on the VOW network. It's Tyler Forness. Hello, Tyler.
Andrew, good to chat with you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you? Glad you're here.
Oh, I'm excited. I've been a fan of your work for, I don't know, ever since I joined the network, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. So it's really cool to be able to kind of chat and join the show and kind of explore music in a little bit of a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've had your podcast partner Fred on a few times, but this is your debut. I know we met in person a couple times in Chicago for AEW shows with the rest of the crew there at Chris Sampson's house and in the suite. So it's good to finally chat on air in an official capacity, I guess, Tyler.
Absolutely, and especially because those meetups were so fun, but we never really got a chance to have a super in-depth conversation just because there's 20 of us. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm really excited about this.
Definitely, yeah, and we're recording this just a few days ahead of the start of the NFL season. And for those that don't know, you're a beat writer who covers the Vikings up there in Minnesota, your territory there. So I can imagine things are about to get quite busy for you there, Tyler.
They already have, and we're about to announce it got pushed back due to some technical difficulties because we just switched back-end servers for our website, but I'm going to also be covering the Florida Gators on a full-time basis too. So it's a lot of fun stuff happening this year, but you know what? I get to sit on my couch, watch TV with my dogs, and talk football for a living. I don't think it could be much better other than if it was pro wrestling.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert on football stats and trades and all that stuff. I just hope the Patriots do at least okay this year, because last year they were putrid. So if they can just be decent and have a good showing there, that'll be very much appreciated from me there, Tyler.
Oh, I'll make you feel a little better. I think your quarterback, Drake May, has the potential to be an all-timer. I think he's just tremendous. So there's still a lot of questions, but I think Vrabel's a great coach, and he maximizes talent. I don't think you're going to be super disappointed with the results of this year. Even if it's only 7 wins, I think you're going to come out of the year being we were a good team just couldn't quite get over the hump, and then that'll be what next year brings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about a new season. It's, it's a fresh start. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But anyway, today, Tyler, we are doing an episode that I am calling "I Was There." If you've ever been to a big wrestling show, like a pay-per-view or WrestleMania or something like that, typically you will find a commemorative shirt available at the merch stand that says, "I was there," SummerSlam 2025 or something like that. And those kinds of shirts are not just exclusive to wrestling. Of course, every major band and artist has a tour shirt with all the dates listed on it. So that kind of shirt has inspired this episode. We are playing songs by bands that we have seen play live. Pretty straightforward. Now, when you sent me your list of songs there, Tyler, you also sent me a bunch of extras. And that tells me you've been to more concerts than I have, I think. How often would you say you go to shows there, Tyler?
So I sent you a lot, but what's really funny is, like, it's only from about, 7 or 8 concerts, because I've seen so many of these bands together to where it feels like I've been to a lot more. I didn't attend my first concert until I was 19 in 2009, and that concert was Motley Crue, which I got lucky because one of my best friends is a super fan, and he's like, "We got good Vince Neil tonight. He wasn't drunk," and I was very, very happy about that because he was good. There wasn't a lot of labored breathing because back then he was still running around on stage and doing a bunch of that kind of stuff. But I don't go to a lot of shows anymore, mainly because I live about 40 minutes away from downtown Minneapolis, and quite frankly, I just don't want to leave the house. I just love being at home. So the last one I went to was last summer. We went to Blink-182, and then we saw Ludacris and T-Pain at the Minnesota State Fair. And since we always do 2 days at the State Fair, it just kind of made sense. And yeah, I have a decent amount of diversity, but a lot of this stuff is more on the hard rock side because that's kind of where my brain has kind of led me as far as music passions go.
We are in sync there. We're very similar because I've said before, I didn't start going to concerts until I was in my early 20s, like the year after I graduated college, pretty much. And, part of that is because I guess I'm, like you, more of a homebody anyway. And I think another part of that is once I graduated and I got a job and started getting my own financial independence, that is what gave me the nudge to start buying tickets, because now I had my own money as opposed to worrying about, being frivolous with my parents' money, which I wasn't anyway, but still, and that's true for wrestling shows as well. The majority of wrestling shows I've been to in my life have been in the past decade, basically just AEW and New Japan shows pretty much. So, it's not like I'm going to shows every weekend nowadays. It's still a very, regular thing for me to do, but I have been to several shows where, I'm extremely grateful to myself for, spending the money and going out and schlepping to the venue or whatever and spending time, at these shows and building these memories there, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some really unique concert stories. I'm one of only a few thousand people who's seen one particular band in concert, and I know we'll get to it, and I'm really excited to share that story. And I tried my best to link as much as I could of this to wrestling because I know that's something that we're both really passionate about, but not a lot of my bands have a super common link to something that I've kind of experienced in wrestling, but it's a lot of really good stuff here today. I'm really excited about your list because some of the songs I have either never heard or are not ringing a bell. So I'm very excited to dive into those too, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Definitely, yeah. So let's get to the music here. We have 10 songs each, and I picked one of Tyler's extras for the playout song at the end there. And I will say, you're right, Tyler. There's not going to be a ton of variety with these picks. They tend to stay in the same rock and metal lanes for the most part. But I think we both tried to pick artists and songs and shows that have some sort of story or memory to go along with them, which is the important part, I think. So, Tyler, you are the guest. You'll go first. So what's your first pick?
So my first pick is from Killswitch Engage, and those who know Killswitch Engage, they have 2 frontmen, and they sandwich each other. So Jesse was the first frontman, and he's now the current frontman, and Howard Jones was the guy in the middle. And this is Rose of Sharon from the End of Heartache album, which obviously has a link to Wrestling with Roderick Strong. And this song is incredibly powerful, and it really shows the amount of diversity that you get from a lot of these guys who scream, because I don't think some of them get enough respect, because in order to be a good screamer, you have to be a good singer. And Howard Jones might be the best frontman I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know if you've ever heard this song, but it's a tremendous one on a lot of levels, and it hits home on a few of them. But we'll talk about that after the clip.
What rain, what war, the last words I said to you will burn for you. Then I'll find a way to turn back time. Cannot turn back time. What would I give to behold the smile, the face of love? You've never left me. The rising sun will always speak your
Oh God, I love that song. When you get toward the end of the song, Andrew, I think one of the things, and you kind of grasped it initially, was it's talking about loss. And I remember this would have been 2018 in June. One of my best friends from college ended up passing away because he broke his foot when he was younger, and it healed so poorly, and he needed surgery to just fix it. And he was so thrilled about it. He's like, I'm going to go to my family cabin up in Michigan. I'm going to hang out for a few months, and then I'm going to be ready to go. I'm going to be able to do everything that I've wanted to and not have to worry about this foot. Well, 2 weeks later, he ended up passing away from a pulmonary embolism, blood clot, something that's unfortunately very common when you have leg injury because you're not super mobile. And they didn't get him the right blood thinners. Just a very tragic situation. But one of the things that really hits me with this song is that person never leaves you. And it really drives that point home. And then as you get toward the end of the song, it gets really melodic. And then you got a sense of Howard Jones's real vocal range with a couple of those non-screaming elements. But at the end, it's just incredibly powerful and beautiful. And one of the cool things about this was the one song that really, I found Killswitch Engage through wrestling because of CM Punk. And I'm like, okay, his theme song is obviously called This Fire. Everybody knows it is This Fire Burns. And they opened for Disturbed back in 2009, I want to say. And I'm like, these guys rule. So I bought tickets to go see them the next summer when they were coming to town. But Howard Jones got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 2 weeks before the show, and he quit the band. So I was fortunate enough. I didn't get to see Killswitch Engage that night. I'm one of only a few thousand people to have seen Phil Switch Engage, which was Phil Labonte of All That Remains. And they didn't do any All That Remains songs, and they're still one of my favorite bands of all time. But you got to have him just do the entire set list of Killswitch. And then when he did this song, it was different, but he's got such a powerful voice when it comes to those melodic elements. And this song, whenever I'm feeling sad about a loss, I lost Eclair, my rescue dog, 2 years ago. And this song just helps me put things into perspective. And it just, sad songs make me feel better about life. in kind of a roundabout way. And this one has always been like in my top 5 favorite songs ever for so many reasons. And I highly recommend everybody just go listen to the full thing. And the screaming is not going to be for everybody, but there's so much power and emotion that I draw from his voice that just, it sits so well in so many ways.
We're really starting off heavy here. My goodness, with not just the music, but with the stories. It's very powerful stuff, and I thank you for sharing that. I'm one of those people who only knows Killswitch Engage as the band that did This Fire Burns or End of Heartache. That's pretty much it. It's a little too intense for me. It's a little too screamy for my liking, and to listen to on a regular basis. But that's their style, and I can imagine, going to one of their shows, regardless of who is singing. I can imagine there's a lot of aggression and energy at a Killswitch Engage show there, Tyler.
It's incredible. Howard Jones is he's like 6'4", 250 pound, just jacked black dude, and he's just running around like he's a teenager, and it was so much fun to see him live, and it's a real shame that this era of Killswitch Engage kind of ended. And like you saying, like, it's a little too much for you screaming guys, I get it. I completely do. I found that I only like about 20% of screamers because so much of it just feels like it's forced and there's not a lot of like real vocal talent behind it. It's just screaming to scream. That's not what I want for my music. I want there to be some kind of passion, meaning, like you're using it for a purpose. It's similar to wrestling. You're using a weapon for a purpose. Don't just use it to use it. That's why so much of like deathmatch wrestling does not connect with me, because you're just doing it because it's the match. Why are you using it? Why is it applied here? And I think Killswitch is one of those bands that just hits with me because when it's done, it feels natural. It feels like they're using it for a reason, not just because, well, this is what you have to do. This is metal. And that's one of the reasons why I really like them so much. But I would love for them to at some point release a song acoustically, because I think it would be able to hit so many other people like yourself, where the normal song is too hard, but everything else about it is just really, really good. And it can be that bridge to somebody who would have never even given it a chance. And I hope they do that someday. They haven't yet, but there's still time. They're only in their early 40s.
Well, one more thing here. There's another Howard Jones, a white British guy who is a new wave synth pop artist who had a bunch of hits in the 80s. And I got to say, I prefer him over the American one. I will admit there, Tyler.
That is more than fine. I've heard of that Howard Jones. He's good.
Yeah, he does What Is Love and New Song and Things Can Only Get Better and a bunch of other good songs there. But anyway, I am going in chronological order with my list here. I've said before, my first concert was Paul McCartney at Fenway Park in 2016. And he played a mix of, solo stuff, Wings, and of course Beatles. I picked a Beatles song here. This is from their self-titled album, also called The White Album. And this is Helter Skelter.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide, where I stop and I turn and I go for a ride, till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah. But don't you want me to love you? I'm coming down fast, but I'm miles above you. Tell me, come on, tell me the answer. Well, you may be a lover, but you ain't no
So at that point, Paul McCartney was 74 years old, and he did a 3-hour show, no breaks, played like 40 songs or whatever. And, it was as perfect of a first concert as you can have. A legendary artist in a legendary venue, an affordable ticket in the upper level, and I had good visuals of the stage as well. It was amazing. And with Helter Skelter in particular, this was played during the encore, and McCartney had 2 special guests with him on stage during the song. One of them was Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead. The other one was Rob Gronkowski when he was still with the Patriots. And I swear to God, he got as big a reaction as McCartney did. It was incredible. He didn't really sing all that much, thank God, but he did dance a lot on stage to the song. So it was a very memorable first show to be at, and it wasn't supposed to be my first show. The next band I'm going to play, they were supposed to be the first one, but I saw a ticket for this show pop up on like a secondary market site, and I figured, you know what, it's McCartney, I gotta snatch this thing up and go to this show, and I did, and thank God I did, because it was amazing, Tyler.
Man, well, how spoiled is that for Paul McCartney to be your first concert? That's tremendous. He is one of those individuals, and he's doing another tour. He's playing US Bank Stadium, so he's probably going to fill it. Him and the boss, Bruce Springsteen, there's just from a different era of music where if he passed out on stage, it wouldn't shock me. And I mean that as a compliment, because you said he played 40 songs over like 3.5 hours. They're so driven to want to give you this great show, and they're willing to just play until their bodies just can't go anymore. I wish we had a little bit more of that in today's music. I think Taylor Swift's got a little bit of that to her, but a lot of bands, it's just like you're going to get an hour 20, hour 30, and that's it. It just doesn't feel like there's that level of passion anymore. So it's really cool to hear that. Your first show, you got 3.5 hours of Paul McCartney. That's phenomenal.
It's pretty wild, yeah. And it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day. Helter Skelter, great song, stands out as one of the heaviest in the Beatles catalog, this proto-metal, proto-punk song of sorts. But then it became, infamously part of the Manson family murders and that whole thing, and it took on this, pretty dark connotation. Fast forward decades later, and the Gronk is dancing to it on stage at Fenway Park. Like, what a turn of events this turned out to be. My God, but no, yeah, I couldn't not include this on my list here, Tyler. I had to, because, first concert in McCartney, it's a hell of a combo.
It's great stuff, man.
All right, so what's your next pick?
My next pick is a band called Dream Theater, and they are one of my favorites for a multitude of reasons. And this song has never been one of their like super popular ones, but it's always stuck out to me for a multitude of reasons. I'll get into that. It's called Constant Motion. There's just something about progressive, and I think Rush hits a lot of these same notes, but when it comes to Dream Theater, I view it as kind of like a combination of like Rush and Metallica, where you get a lot of the intensity, but you get so much of the dynamic element that Rush will bring, where there's so much complexity to the music, but they make it feel so simplistic at the same time. Mike Portnoy is arguably one of my favorite musicians ever. He has this like 70-piece drum kit, and you see some drummers, they have this massive drum kit and they use like 10 pieces of it. Well, why do you have it? If you're not going to use it, there's no point. It's just for show. At that point, just be Travis Barker and have this small drum kit and just make it look like you're killing it. But Portnoy uses every piece, and he does so in such a like effortless fashion where there's so much going on with the percussion element of the song, but it doesn't feel stressful. It doesn't feel forced. It just feels naturally and it flows. And that's one of the things I've always enjoyed about Dream Theater is they bring simplicity to the complex. And this one has always stood out to me as they have that intensity and aggression early, but then once you get into the chorus, you start to get a little bit more of that beauty of what they're bringing to the table. And I got to see them at the Orpheum Theater, which is like 2,000 seat playhouse in downtown Minneapolis. And their encore was one song and it was 20 minutes long. Just only a band like Dream Theater could do that. It's not for everybody. It's also a band that I can't listen to like super regularly because I have ADD brain a little bit. I don't always want to listen to 6 and 7 minute songs. It's the same with like Tool. I think Tool's one of the greatest bands of our generation, but it's a very one song and I'm done kind of band for how I like to enjoy music. But it was so cool to see them live and see how they took that complexity and made it simple.
Yeah, songs like this really emphasize why Dream Theater is called progressive metal, because it's not just about doing these, long, complex songs, but there's the heaviness, there's the loudness, and the intensity at play as well. I'm a casual-leaning Dream Theater fan. Like, some of their stuff I really enjoy a lot, like Images and Words. That album is pretty great, and a few other albums as well. A lot of their stuff I'm agnostic on. It's whatever to me, but you can't deny the skills required to do this kind of music. Like, all of these guys are super talented musicians, and when you're on tour doing these songs that, have all of these time signature changes, and they're going 8, 9, 10 minutes plus, sometimes way longer, it takes a lot of work to pull that off. And I respect their talent and their craft for sure, Tyler.
With Dream Theater, even if you don't like stuff that's really aggressive, you can find stuff in there that's a little less leaning, especially if you go like Pull Me Under, which is probably their biggest hit that most people know, especially because it was on Guitar Hero. And then I would recommend everybody listen to Octavarium. It's 25 minutes, but it's in 5 parts, and it feels like you're getting 5 different songs within the construct of the one. It's so artistic in that sense, and I think they're playing in like 5 different keys too, which is just insane. But they're so tremendously talented, and it's the best way I can describe it is what I've already said a couple times. They make the complex feel simple.
Yeah, and I think they just wrapped up their 40th anniversary tour, which it feels kind of crazy to think like Dream Theater is 40 years old, but no, they did start in 85 under the name Majesty, and they actually formed in Boston because Portnoy, John Petrucci, and John Mayong met at Berklee College of Music. So how about that, Tyler?
Shout out Boston.
All right, well, my next pick here, like I said earlier, this was supposed to be my first concert. I actually bought tickets like 9 months in advance or whatever, but then McCartney came up and I went to that first instead. So this became my second concert about a month after that one. This is Black Sabbath. I saw Sabbath on the End tour, and I picked a song that they played on that show. This is from Volume 4. This is Snowblind. Yeah, that song is just awesome. It's all about the wonderful drug that is cocaine, that the band was using a lot of at the time. You can even hear Ozzy whisper, "cocaine," after the first verse, just in case you didn't get it. And yeah, it has this great heavy riff, multiple heavy riffs, and that lumbering pace throughout most of the song. But then it speeds up at one point, like a cocaine rush of sorts, which is pretty neat. Yeah, this is one of the songs that I hoped they would play when I saw them. Obviously, they're going to play Paranoid, Iron Man, War Pigs, all those big songs. But they're not going to play 3 hours, of a show like McCartney did. So there's just only so many songs to pick from and do. And luckily, they played this one live. So I was a very happy boy there, Tyler.
Oh, I love when bands are so subtle about their drug use. It's tremendous. Snowblind's a great one. Sabbath has a lot of low-key, really impressive songs if you really dive into their catalog, and I think you did a great job highlighting this was one of them. As we all know, Iron Man, War Pigs, Paranoid, but the more you listen, it's really impressive how in-depth their catalog is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did make sure to play a good amount of songs that don't get the kind of radio play that Iron Man does or Paranoid or whatever, which was pretty cool to see. And yeah, looking at my list, there are a few people on it that are no longer with us, sadly. And Ozzy's he's been gone a little more than a month now, and it's still sad that we lost him, of course. But he lived a full life and then some, man. And he did make it to that final show with Sabbath in England and all those great metal bands on there. So he got to have a real proper ending to his career, which most people don't get, And I'm glad I was able to see him and Sabbath live before it was too late. There are bands I do regret not seeing before they ended, the big one being Rush. Mm-hmm. I really regret not seeing Rush before that band was done. But yeah, I did see Sabbath, which was pretty cool there, Tyler.
Who was the guitarist for Sabbath when you got to see them?
Oh, it was Tony Iommi.
Nice.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool too, because this was like right after Tony announced that he had beaten cancer, and when Ozzy did the band introductions, he was like, Mr. Tony Iommi. The entire place just exploded because everyone was so happy that Tony was cancer free. That was really nice. But it was Ozzy, Tony, and Geezer. There was no Bill Ward because he had dropped out of the reunion pretty early on because of some contract issue or whatever it was. So it was Tommy Clufetos, Ozzy's solo drummer. And he's a great drummer, don't get me wrong. But, part of me does wish that Bill had been there. So it could have been all four original guys at the show there. So
yeah, you can't beat the original, but I'm glad the show still ruled because you can kind of figure things out with the background guys. You can't fake Ozzy.
Oh, no.
He's just one of a kind.
For sure, yeah. And we're all going to miss him, definitely, yeah. But all right, Tyler, what's your next pick there?
So this is a fun one. This was actually from a free concert, and I'll get into that in a little bit. It's a band called Silverstein, and the song is called American Dream. It's one of the entire album encapsulates an entire story, and this is the fourth song on that album, and it feels like the turning point of the story, which is why it's always kind of stood out to me as that anchor.
Keeping this in. I've got cuts I can't close, I've got wounds that won't heal. It's all your fault. I've been shattered and wrecked, my hands covered in blood, scars on my skin. I forgot how to feel, now I'm weak with deceit. My skin is paper thin. We get through this, feeling it, keeping it, holding it in. We go through this over and over again. I'd go years without tears in a life with no fear, a life without you. Now I'm breaking my back as I cover my tracks. My skin is paper thin. What's
I got to see Silverstein at Zoomies Couch Tour. Have you ever heard of Couch Tour, Andrew?
I have not.
So most people know Zoomies. It's a big skateboard, snowboard kind of store that they sell apparel, they sell actual gear. A friend of mine, Teresa, ran the one in Albertville, which is the first outlet mall that they ever built in Minnesota. And they would have it about 45 minutes from my hometown. And it was outside of this mall. And it was this free show and like almost like a skateboard festival. They had a bunch of like amateur skateboarders do a bunch of stuff. And then they had two bands. One of them was the Static Lullaby, and most people would know them because they covered Britney Spears' Toxic. And then Silverstein, who I had never heard before. And they played this entire album, which was A Shipwreck Through the Sand. And the whole thing is telling the story about this couple, and one of them strays on the wedding day, and then it turns into this huge deal. And from start to finish, it's just it does a great job of telling the story. And this is the big turning point. And this is what I talked about earlier, where they use the screaming here to emphasize a point. It's not in the entirety of the song. It's used for a purpose. And I think that's why it really set in, because to me, that was kind of how I got introduced to it. I heard Ohio's for Lovers by Hawthorne Heights when I was like 14. I had no idea you could do that in music. I'm like, people do that? That's allowed? And that really stood out because of how it was used and why it was used. And this is a very similar way. And seeing that live, knowing nothing about the band, I bought the album next day at Hot Topic. It was really cool, and being able to kind of see that whole thing evolve in front of my eyes as far as what my fandom was becoming, it was a lot of fun. I thought these guys just absolutely ruled that day, and the best part is I spent no money.
That's nice. That's a nice bonus for sure. Yeah. I had never heard of these guys before. I had definitely heard of their namesake, because apparently they're named after Shel Silverstein.
Yep.
Of all people, which is, pretty cool there. And, but yeah, I've never heard of this band, this Canadian emo band, or emo, as you might call them, folks. But
well done.
But I had no idea that you were a fan of emo music, Tyler.
Oh, I love emo music. My favorite type of music is stuff that is incredibly passionate, and you can feel the passion coming from the artists themselves. And I think to me, that's a big theme throughout every song that I sent you. It doesn't feel generic. It feels like it's coming from their soul. And I think that's one reason why like country music has never resonated with me, because so much of it just feels manufactured. It doesn't feel like you're getting the person. You're just getting a song. And to me, that's not what makes music great. It's about the person bearing everything for you in whatever way they want and sharing that raw emotion. And to me, that's what makes it special, because any of these artists could go and perform an instrument for you and do a tremendous job, or they can belt out some vocals. But what does it mean? What are you delivering? Is it just, oh, I'm giving you a brand new car, or is Jeff Gordon going to drive it around and win the Brickyard 400? To me, that's the big difference. And emo music, you get so many of these artists, they're basically giving you a diary to their life, and everything is real and raw, and there's some kind of backstory to everything. And that's why I've always been drawn to it. Plus, growing up, I was always the picked on kid. I had like 2 friends until I was like 18. Like, I was kind of the outcast in high school. So it always helped me keep myself grounded and not get into a sense of like depression, which a lot of kids in that position probably would have. It helped me a lot. So the passion to me is the number one draw of music. Anybody can be skilled, but that doesn't make it good.
You need that emotional core and spark to go along with it, is what you're saying. I totally get that. Yeah. And these guys definitely have a lot of emotion as far as I can tell, from this song here. And I'm also seeing that they've played on the Vans Warped Tour a bunch over the years, which again, given their music stylings, makes a lot of sense there for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But all right. So after McCartney and Sabbath, I kind of caught a little bug, to see more concerts. So my next pick and the one after that are both from 2016 as well. This band is called The Heavy, and I'm going to play a song from their 2012 album, The Glorious Dead. This song is called What Makes a Good Man. Yeah, The Heavy, damn good band. That's one of their more well-known songs. Their most well-known is How You Like Me Now, which came out a few years before this one. But yeah, a great mishmash of rock and funk and blues and soul. Ton of energy, ton of fun live, especially in a smaller venue. Because, most of the shows that I've been to have been in TD Garden or whatever, or a big theater. This was at the Sinclair in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Smaller club, general admission, and the band was right there in front of me. I'm not in the nosebleeds. I'm not a mile away. This band that I listen to and enjoy is standing right there, just a few feet away. It's one of the few times I've ever been that close to a band before. It was kind of surreal, and I think that level of intimacy really helps the show, really helps with the atmosphere, and it really keeps the energy concentrated in this, smaller space, especially if the club is packed, which it was that night. So, The Heavy, fun band and a fun live band in particular, Tyler.
Man, I had never heard the name of the band, but I've heard those two songs you mentioned, and obviously the one you just played. It's good stuff. And for some reason, and this may sound absolutely insane, when he started singing, I got this like Allman Brothers vibe from just the inflection of his voice. And that was just like a huge draw for me, because I grew up listening to a lot of Allman Brothers in my dad's truck, and it's a little bit nostalgic, but obviously Allman Brothers, tremendous group that has a lot more diversity with what their music actually is, even though it's kind of within the same genre. But this was great. This is something I'm probably going to go add to my playlist when we're done with this. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. They're actually British, funny enough. You can't tell, of course, but they're originally from England. So there you go. And a cool fact about this band that I love, they're the first band to ever get an encore on David Letterman's show. When they debuted, they did How You Like Me Now, and he loved it so much. He was like, that was so great, do a little more of that. And they did. And then when they came back a few years later and did this song, What Makes a Good Man, Letterman asked for another encore of How You Like Me Now. So that's 2 encores on Letterman for these guys, which is, quite the accomplishment, Tyler.
That's really cool. I'm not going to call David Letterman like this huge, music expert or anything, but when you get someone like him asking for an encore, that's so cool.
Definitely, yeah. But all right, what's your next pick there, Tyler?
Yeah, so this one has a lot of emotion behind it, and none of it has to do with me. This is Avenged Sevenfold's critical acclaim off of their self-titled album.
Like me, motherfucker, you've been at it for too long. While your feet up others' insecurities, you stand in front of me and fight the hand that fades. Self-righteousness is where it lies inside your head, your best friend. I bleed right now from fellow broken glass of fake reflection. Telling them it's all but something real. Don't respect the words you speak and God to So how does it feel to know that someone's kid in the heart of America has blood on their hands fighting to defend your rights so you can maintain a lifestyle that insults his family's existence? Well, where I'm from, we have a special salute we aim high in the air towards all those pompous asses who spend their days pointing fingers.
This album is, you may get the vibe that this is like a really hardcore band, and they have a lot of hardcore stuff. And this song is probably their most punk song they've ever done. But one of their biggest influences on their self-titled album was Toby Keith. If you listen to the entire thing start to finish, you get such a wide variety of what Avenged Sevenfold is and can do. And this song is extra special because I was at the first show on the tour after their drummer, the Rev, died. It was in Minneapolis at Target Center. And they had only done one show in between the Rev's passing that previous Christmas and this show here. They did one show in Montreal. And they had Mike Portnoy fill in for the Rev for the Nightmare album and the tour. And Portnoy was the Rev's favorite drummer. So there's the link between Dream Theater, Sevenfold. So that was also really cool. But what stood out here was how special the atmosphere was and why I'll never forget it. Andrew, we were at All Out in 2021, and the vibes from that show were just incredible. You got a match of the year with the Lucha Brothers and Young Bucks, and then we got the returns of CM Punk into the ring, and then the debuts of Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. And we all left that show like we had just
best night ever, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like we had joined Ozzy for a nice round of cocaine. It was just incredible vibes. So this song, when they switched singers and the higher pitch guy was the Rev, and it was so cool, and I'll never ever forget this moment. It was in 2010. It was in August, a week before I moved out of my parents' house, and he is just finishing up his portion. M Shadow's the front man, and then all of a sudden he goes spread eagle, looking right at Portnoy, and then looks up at the sky, and then instead of having somebody else do it, they have the recording of the Rev, and the first like 3 words hit, and then all of a sudden you hear 12,000 people explode. And you can't hear anything. You can't hear your own thoughts. It was a special, special moment. And there was so much emotion from the guys on stage, everybody we were around. The Rev had always predicted that he was going to die before the age of 30. The last song he ever turned in was a song on the Nightmare album. It was the second to last song. He titled it Death. They changed it to Fiction. And then they added one more song that they made with Mike Portnoy called Save Me, which is probably a top 10 favorite song for me. Nice little 12-minute one, which is perfect for Portnoy. But the absolute passion and energy that these guys were able to draw out of everybody by using real life was another one of those big draws of music for me. And it was a damn shame they didn't even have behind the show. Disturbed played right afterwards, and it was a wet fart. Nobody cared. And it was really unfortunate because I saw them again in Fargo on the second to last show of the tour about 6-7 weeks later in October. And they still had Disturbed finishing the tour. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this to Disturbed? That's not fair. My friend and I left halfway through Disturbed, and like it was just lifeless. It wasn't even fun to listen to, but it was such a special moment in time that they got to share with us. And it was only the second song of the set. We're not even talking like their last song. It just set the tone for the rest of their performance, and it was so cool. Death isn't cool, but the moment that it almost like united the band's grief with, for lack of a better term, our grief of the fact that the Rev is gone because he was so good and pivotal to what they were. They're just a bunch of friends from Huntington Beach, California. It was a unique moment that I don't think can ever be duplicated.
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever been at that kind of show. I mean, McCartney obviously had the tributes to Lennon and Harrison, but those guys had died years and years and years ago. So yeah, I don't think I've ever been to a show like you described, where it's the first tour after such a pivotal member of the band has died.
Did you ever see the video of Linkin Park playing Red Rock? I think it was Red Rocks. After Chester died, maybe it was like a year later.
Was that the tribute show with all the special guests on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what kind of heavy vibes are at that kind of show, for sure, given all the emotion. But as far as this song goes, I do want to give a shout out to Sean Sedor, another big fan of this band, and I like a bunch of Avenged Sevenfold songs. Bad Country, Beast and the Harlot, Almost Easy, Nightmare, and this is from that same era of the band, 05 to 2013. I don't know if I like this one, especially hearing it in today's political climate, because it is laughably unsubtle. And this band is not a very subtle band to begin with, but this is pretty on the nose as to what it's about. It's calling out people who criticize America and the state of the country and bash the troops, but they don't do anything themselves to affect change. And Avenged Sevenfold have been open about their conservative leanings, and given this song came out in 2007, I think it's pretty clear that this was written in response to the anti-Iraq war stuff going on back then. Mm-hmm. And I think years later, M. Shadows was regretful of how antagonizing they were with this song. But as it stands today, I'd still prefer to listen to Bad Country or whatever, Tyler. So.
Oh, no, I totally get it. When we were growing up in high school, a lot of people would have sound systems in their car, and they would just drive down the road obnoxious. I've had a sound system in my vehicles pretty much since 2009, but I have it tuned specifically for my enjoyment. I don't care about anybody else. Nobody else needs to hear my music. And this one has always been a weird one because the drums and the bass is so subtle. It's very odd as far as how it's mixed versus everything else. It's weird because this is their only real punk song in their entire catalog. They don't have anything else. It's just a Critical Acclaim. That's it. So the fact that they did that, and this album, if you listen to it start to finish, it varies. They have a lot of orchestral elements in it too. And then they take stuff from Toby Keith, and you get some of that with Dear God, and obviously Critical Acclaim, because Toby Keith has never had a problem during the course of his life, which unfortunately has come to an end, of criticizing anybody who criticizes America. That whole album from start to finish is just so cool because it doesn't feel like you're listening to the same band the whole time because of how varied everything is. But this one song really hit a chord because of that emotion. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I agree with the message, but I've always had an attachment to it from that perspective.
Well, I just appreciate that you didn't pick A Little Piece of Heaven, because having to explain the story of that song, a little tug-collery, I think, with that one there.
That song is incredible, but it's like the South Park of music. It's in its lane, and if you don't like it, that's okay. I'm never gonna force it on you. Okay.
Well, let's move on to my next pick here. This is a concert that I went to as kind of a spur of the moment sort of thing. It's Echo and the Bunnymen. Like, I'm not the biggest Echo and the Bunnymen fan in the world, but I saw a ticket available and I was like, hey, why not, right? Come on. So I saw them at the House of Blues in Boston, and I picked a song from their 1984 album Ocean Rain, and this is probably their most well-known song, one of their biggest songs commercially as well. This is The Killing Moon.
In the starlit nights I saw you, so cruelly you kissed me. Your lips a magic world, your sky all hung with jewels. The killing moon will come too soon. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin, he will wait until you give yourself to him.
Yeah, that's an amazing song. I love Ian McCulloch's kind of post-punk crooner voice there, and the imagery of the lyrics and the strings and the chorus and that bass line. It's so good. And yeah, I like a bunch of Bunnymen songs, but I will say this. This was the worst concert I've ever been to. It wasn't like a disaster, but Ian is a bit of a surly chap, not the most affable frontman I've seen. They had either a bass player or a guitar player who was new, so he had to read off sheet music to follow along with the songs. And The Killing Moon was one of the last songs played before the encore, and they had to restart it because Ian got lost. And I think he blamed the audience for messing him up and not knowing the right words. So yeah, it was not the best show, and from what I've read, Ian's gotten a bit worse, and the live shows have suffered, even more. So yeah, I'll always enjoy the studio work, but I don't plan on seeing Echo and the Bunnymen again anytime soon. There, Tyler.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I had something similar, but not similar. Like I get to see Breaking Benjamin with Sevenfold and a band we're going to hear in a little bit, Bullet for My Valentine. They all played together, and Breaking Benjamin was awful, and it was really unfortunate. But like, I think like 3 of the band members were just had horrible flu, but they still went out there, and I respected it. But it's so frustrating when you're seeing a band that you really want to see and they just don't deliver. We get that in sports all the time, but in music, I think it just hits so differently. I have a friend who's an entertainment reporter, and he went to a T-Pain show. I think it was at Iowa State Fair, and they were so disrespectful. T-Pain just came out and said, like, screw you guys. I don't need to perform. I don't need this money. Like, if you're going to treat me like this, I'm done. And he just straight up said it, and, I'll give the Idaho crowd credit. They just shut up and let him finish. But it's never fun when you want to have this great time at a show and it just stinks. But that's also a really weird one that the guy's got sheet music to play in front of a crowd. That's so wild.
Yeah, it was a bit odd to look at. And this show also taught me a very important lesson, which is know when the band actually takes the stage. Because I got there before the start time on the ticket, and it's, again, House of Blues, general admission, so I'm standing there in the middle of the venue with other people around, and I'm waiting for the opening act, and all of a sudden this guy comes out, and he starts playing songs off a laptop, and I'm confused, so I look at my phone, and I see on the band's Facebook page there will be no opening act. The band will be on at like, I don't know, 9:30, and it's 8:05 or whatever. So me and everybody else there had to just stand there awkwardly while this DJ was just, playing MP3s or whatever. So yeah, I learned my lesson after that one. Make sure you know when the band actually hits the stage, because you might end up waiting a while there, Tyler.
Oh, that's rough, man. That is rough. I've been to some rough events, but nothing quite like that.
Yeah. Memorable for the wrong reasons. Definitely. But all right, Tyler, what's your next pick there?
My next pick is Blink-182, which I have an odd relationship with. I didn't start listening to Blink-182 until I was 20, and that would have been in 2010. Like, I didn't listen to them at all during their peak. I was too busy listening to talk radio, sports talk radio. That was all I could get my hands on. And if podcasts would have been around, it would have even been worse. But this, the one I picked might be my favorite song because it feels deeper than a lot of Blink-182 songs, and not as an insult, but it's kind of heavy. And as you can tell with a lot of my stuff, I like heavy music. It's Stay Together for the Kids.
It's hard to wake up when the shades have been pulled shut. This house is haunted, it's so pathetic, it makes no sense at all. I'm ripe with things to say, the words rot and fall away. What stupid poem could fix this home? I'd read it every day. So here's your holiday. Hope you enjoy it this time. You gave it all away. It was mine. So when you're dead and gone, will you remember this night? 20 years now lost. It's not right.
This one, I think everybody can relate to. If it's you or somebody that you know, maybe it's your best friend. Like, everybody's knows somebody where their parents just shouldn't be together anymore. They shouldn't be married. And they're just staying together, as the title says, for the kids. And we've all been there. We've all seen it. And I thought it was really interesting and cool when I first heard the song. Because like I said, I didn't really start listening to them until 2010. Looking at it from that lens instead of hearing it in real time when it came out, I think circa like 2002, 2004, somewhere in there, it hit me a little differently because we've all had those parents. And my best friend's parents got divorced October of our senior year because his dad just wouldn't stop partying every weekend in the basement. And she wanted a break. And so she's like, all right, I'm gone. Bye. And she left. This is like, it just hits kind of hard in that sense, but it's a really good song. And it's something, like I said, that I think most people can relate to in that element. And it's a good reminder that if you don't love each other anymore, like, staying together for the kids is not necessarily a good thing for the kids. It's, you want to do right for the kids. And I think doing right for the kids means making sure that they're in a home with a lot of love all around and not just the love sent toward them. So they don't usually get super deep. They're usually, when I saw them in May of last year, they're just 45-year-old dudes making your mom's hot jokes. Like, that's who Blink-182 is, but this deviated from it. And I thought they really killed it.
Well, we are once again in sync because this is my favorite Blink song.
Yeah.
Not that I relate to it because my parents were very happy together until my mom's death, and my dad has since remarried, and they're happy together too, of course. And I just like the balance here between the softer, more melodic verses from Mark Hoppus and then the explosive, angry choruses from Tom DeLonge, channeling the rage that a kid would feel when their parents divorce. It's pretty serious stuff, like you said. And that does contrast with the name of the album, which is Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. But that's Blink-182 to a T, that's them. So, I'm glad you picked this one, Tyler, for sure.
Yeah, this and Adam's song are probably my two favorites, and they're the two really heavy ones of everything that they've ever done. I just love Blink. They're so cool.
Mm-hmm. And they just went on tour again a few days ago with Alkaline Trio. They're playing a lot of outdoor venues. And,
that's sick. Do they bring Skiba on stage to do stuff?
I don't know. I just saw the news bit about it the other day, but this is after they toured all those sports arenas for their latest album. So yeah, they're still doing very well for themselves. So yeah, good for them.
Oh, that rocks. I might have to get tickets because if they bring Skiba on to do a couple songs, like that would be really cool.
All right. So my next pick here, it's my turn to play some prog. Actually, this is Yes. Now, when I saw Yes, there were two versions of the band going around. There was the band just called Yes with Steve Howe and Alan White. And then there was Yes featuring John Anderson, Trevor Rabin, and Rick Wakeman, or ARW as it was also called for a little bit. And I saw the ARW version of Yes. So let me play a song from an album called Big Generator. This is Rhythm of Love. So it's no secret, I love Yes. I've played them before on the show. And I love Yes in whatever form it comes in, whether it's the classic prog rock 70s Yes with Roundabout and Close to the Edge, Yours Is No Disgrace, or 80s pop Yes when Trevor Rabin joined the band, like this song and Owner of a Lonely Heart, Changes, or the more modern stuff of the 90s and 2000s. And I lucked out seeing this version of Yes, ARW. Because I got to see Anderson and Rabin and Wakeman play music together on stage. But also, I got both sides of the Yes coin, so to speak. They played the prog rock stuff. They played Awaken and Long Distance Runaround and Perpetual Change and those kind of songs. But they also played Rhythm of Love and Hold On and Lift Me Up, which the other Yes, the actual Yes, I guess, doesn't play. They basically just play the prog stuff. And I don't mind that. I want to see proper Yes one day. But for my own enjoyment as a fan, I got the best of both worlds with this show, Tyler.
Man, I have really never heard Yes, but it felt like I was listening to a different version of Rush. And I mean that in the best way. That was a lot of fun. I'm going to have to dig up some Yes for when I'm just kind of sitting around working, because that was very enjoyable.
Yeah, they have a very big catalog, and again, depending on the mood, you can either listen to 20-minute epics, or you can listen to nice and easy pop music, and they're great at both of them. That's the great thing about Yes, is that the talent is always there, no matter what the era is for the band. So yeah. But the show, this was also the first show where I realized, I could just sit down the whole time and that's okay. I don't have to stand up like I did for most of McCartney or all of Sabbath. Now, this was in a theater, and the average age of the audience was much older than I was, so there wasn't going to be much standing anyway, I don't think. But it is nice to just sit back and enjoy the music and not have to worry about your feet aching or blocking someone behind you because you're standing up, or someone in front of you blocking you because they're standing up. So that is a nice aspect to, certain concerts there, Tyler.
When you run a business, there are a lot of boxes to check.
Let's see. Payroll? Check. Inventory? Check. Insurance?
Well, good thing Simply Business makes getting small business insurance fast and easy. Just answer a few questions, review your quotes, and get covered in under 10 minutes, all online. It's that simple. Check insurance off your list at simplybusiness.com.
No, I agree. I don't have much else to add other than that.
All right. We agree on this sentiment. Okay, then.
Yes.
Sure. But all right. What you got next, Tyler?
So this is I'm a sucker for a good power ballad, and I think power ballads have really gone by the wayside, unfortunately, in music. And I think they just got too much grief back in the 80s, and I don't think anybody want to do them. But this one is kind of a modern day power ballad, and it's from Bullet for My Valentine, and it's called Hearts Burst Into Fire.
You're not alone. I know I'm far from home. Do you remember me at all? I'm leaving. Do you wait for me again? I'm screaming. No more days without you spent. It hurts. Wounds so sore. Now I'm torn. I've been far away. When I see your face, my heart bursts into fire. Heart bursts into fire. My bed so cold, so lonely. No arms, just sheets to hold me. As this world stops turning.
It's just a mid 2000s metalcore version of something you would hear from like Cinderella or Tesla back in the mid 80s. And I think that's what makes it great. I also love the sentiment behind the song, because it's about somebody going home and wondering if anybody's going to remember him. Almost like you go back to like a 10-year high school reunion. Like, will they actually remember me? Will they like have, like, in today's social media age, it's a little bit different, because you can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook and see what I'm doing. But in 2007, it was the MySpace top 8 had just become a thing. So they finally removed at that point needing a college email to get Facebook. So it meant a little something different back then, where it's not going to hit the same today. And I think that level of just wondering, like, will things be the same when I go home, for a multitude of reasons? And then sometimes it's not. And that's kind of where the song ends up leaning, it almost like a failed love story. Whenever I like would go, like the first couple times I went home after I moved out, I kind of played that song, and it just kind of gave me a little bit of perspective. Like, hey, they didn't forget you. You're just going to have to catch them up on everything you're doing. And I think music needs more power ballads. I really do.
Yeah, this is a band I've heard of, but I've never listened to them. And before I pressed play, I was expecting something more akin to the Killswitch song you played earlier. But like you said, I got a power ballad, and I liked it. I enjoyed the nice melodic vocals there. I will admit, I was waiting for him to start going into screamo mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then right at the end, he goes, hearts burst into fire. I was like, oh, there it is. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm sure these guys have some crazier stuff. But I like this for sure, Tyler.
What's interesting is the backstory of Bullet for My Valentine is they were a Metallica cover band, and the name of it was Jeff Killed John, and they evolved into Bullet for My Valentine, and they started with just like a 6-song EP called Hand of Blood, and then they released like the album called The Poison with Tears Don't Fall. That's the song that most people know by Bullet for My Valentine. And you can hear some of those Metallica influences if you were like, you don't need to think super hard, but once you kind of hear that they were a Metallica cover band, it makes complete sense. Their version of Welcome Home Sanitarium is very Welsh, but it's very good. It's their version of the guitar, and obviously metalcore guitar is a little bit different than thrash as far as how the sound comes out. But I've always been a fan of Bullet for My Valentine, and having been able to see him a couple times, it was a real joy. I also got to see him, like you talk about, like going to House of Blues and that other spot in Cambridge. Most people around the country, if I tell you First Ave, they know it as the house that Prince built. And I got to see these guys at First Ave, and my buddy's girlfriend, because there's just 3 of us that went to the show, caught a guitar pick from Matt Tuck, the front man. And it was just a real intimate show, only like 500-600 people, maybe 1,000. Just great vibes all around. And like, I wish more bigger bands would do small venue shows, but I know it's not about as much the art anymore. Everything's about making money, which that's part of the capitalist society, and especially post-pandemic. But man, if I ever struck it rich, Andrew, I would just hire a bunch of bands, whatever I needed to pay, and just have them go out to a field. Hey, you're going to play for like 300 people. Just go have fun. Like, that would just be the peak of what I remember going to shows being like, because it's so much better they're performing just in front of a small group of people than this big stadium.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned this earlier with the Heavy and that show. You know, the smaller the venue and the smaller the crowd, the more intimate it's going to be. You know, there's a difference between, you know, being one of 50,000 people in a stadium and being part of just that giant blob, that giant ocean of fans, and being one of 500 people or fewer. You know, there is a difference in energy and atmosphere and all that stuff. So, all right. So my next pick, this is a band I saw on a double bill with Primus. It was a co-headliner show. The band is Mastodon, and they went on first, and then Primus went on second. And Mastodon was touring their album Emperor of Sand at the time, and they played this song here. This song is called Show Yourself.
Show yourself, show yourself. I wanna see everything you're made of. Tear it down, rip it out. Shed your skin and float it down the river. Lose yourself, lose yourself. Wild love is rocking through the valley. Come alive, come alive. Silent to the void without your worries. You're not as safe as far as I can tell, and I can tell. Only you can save yourself. Yeah. Soon this will all be a distant memory, or could this dream be real at all? Stars align, stars and falling get you into trouble. Be afraid, don't be afraid.
So that's one of the more straightforward Mastodon songs. It was a single, and on the shorter end of their works as well, but still a very kick-ass song, no doubt about it. And obviously I picked Mastodon because of the recent tragic death of Brent Hines in that crash, that motorcycle crash. Just 51 years old, just so sad. And he was out of the band at that point, and they had their issues, of course, but still, hell of a guitar player. And similar to Bunnyman, I got the ticket to see Primus and Mastodon as like a, hey, why not, that sort of thing. So there were some songs I didn't know, but my main takeaway from the Mastodon portion of the show was, wow, these guys are really loud, and the lead guitar player with the face tattoo is even scarier looking in person, and that was Brent Hines. That he was a very scary looking, intimidating kind of guy, but again, very talented with the guitar playing. So yeah, rest in peace to him, Tyler.
Mastodon's one of those bands that always slid through the cracks for me. I've never really listened to them, even though it feels like it would be right up my alley. I really enjoyed this. It was heavy on the instrumentals, but the vocals themselves weren't necessarily intentionally heavy. It felt natural how everything kind of flowed together. I'm gonna have to give these guys a real deep dive listen, because it's like a lot of people like, oh, you've never seen that movie? Joe Lanza never having seen Happy Gilmore. Sometimes stuff just falls through the cracks, and I think I'm gonna have to remedy this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned before on the show that my intro to them was Crack the Sky, their fourth album, which I really like a lot, and I've been with them ever since, pretty much. But I do want to bring up this story in regards to that night. This was the most memorable part of the evening. After the show, I walked over to a nearby hotel to wait for an Uber, and I'm standing there, and I see this guy walking towards me, and I'm thinking, that guy looks a lot like Jeremy Piven. And then he gets closer, and I realize that is Jeremy Piven. And I didn't go up to him or bother him. I gave him the head nod as he walked by. But there was a couple about 20 feet or so to my left, including a blonde woman who had enjoyed some drinks, I think. And she asks Jeremy Piven, oh, can I get a picture with you? And he was like, I'm sorry, I can't right now. And he keeps walking. And that did not please her at all. She starts motherfucking him, like, what an asshole, I can't believe this, blah. And then he eventually does come back and take a picture with her. And the switch flips right back. And she's all happy and smiling and, oh, thank you so much. Like, I'll never forget being there to see that interaction, I mean, the show was fine. The show was good. Don't get me wrong. But it can't top that Jeremy Piven blonde lady story. It just can't.
Oh, that's incredible. I don't have many of those where it's like, oh, you walk into and you run into somebody like that and you get to see something really cool. But, man, that's a great way to link shows and that's kind of why I was really excited when you asked me to do the show, because there's so many ways you can link a show with a life event or link a band with something that happens. And the fact that that's your story coming out of this, 10 out of 10, no notes. Tremendous.
Yeah, it was quite the sight. That's for sure. But all right, Tyler, what's your next pick?
So this is going to go back to my first concert, and just a wild concert, which I'll talk to afterwards. Still some of the aggressive vibes, but this one's a little different. It is Motley Crue's Kickstart My Heart. Man, this was my first show. And Andrew, have you ever been to a show that had the incredible wide range of demographics?
I mean, at least in terms of age, certainly. To bring up McCartney again, there was a good mix of older and younger people there. And I've been to shows where, people have brought their little kids with them to the venues. So, I mean, I imagine you're about to explain the diversity of the Mötley Crüe audience there.
Yeah, so the two bands that opened for them were Hinder and Theory of a Dead Man in March of 2009. Just a wild range. In the same row, I'm 20. I'm sitting in a row with like 14, 15-year-old girls and 55-year-old bikers. Just you can't make up the demographics. And of course, it's Mötley Crüe. So on their video backdrop screen, when Girls play, it's basically softcore porn. So that was interesting considering the demographic of my section. And this was the first song they played. Just a great song to just get out the gate. The best one they played all night, the rendition of Home Sweet Home. If I remember correctly, they had the grand piano on like a pulley system, and they lifted up Tommy Lee as he's playing. Really cool stuff. I'm glad I got a good Vince Neil night, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, because a bad Vince Neil night would have been real disappointing for my first show. And my super fan buddy's like, going in this show, I'm 2 for 2. 2, he's been really good. 2, he's been awful. And it was a really fun show. And that was like at the peak of like what Hinder and Theory of a Dead Man were. So a lot of people were really into them along with Mötley Crüe. So it was a cool show for the time and place. And they played it was their Saints of Los Angeles tour. So a lot of people have mixed reactions about what that album was. I liked it, but we got all the classics. We got some new stuff, and everybody was just having a good time. And I don't think I could have asked for more for my first show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, I think, my favorite Mötley Crüe song. And I love the album too. Dr. Feelgood, maybe their best album. Although it's also like the last hurrah of their 80s dominance, because Vince Neil is going to leave real soon. And then here comes grunge. But no, this song, still kicks ass from start to finish. That opening guitar rev up and the drums kicking in. And it's true to its name. It's an adrenaline shot of a song. The thing is, as much as I enjoy listening to this song and the band on their albums, I have no interest in seeing Mötley Crüe live, mainly because of Vince Neil, because there are so many YouTube videos I've seen of him where he just sounds terrible. He's out of shape. He's out of breath. You can't understand when he's singing half the time. He has to do the thing where he puts the mic out to the crowd for them to sing, parts of the song. It can really hurt to see a band or a musician you like struggle physically on stage. In fact, one of my upcoming picks, I'll talk about that real soon there. But look, when these guys get old and they still go on tour, it's going to happen. Not everybody is like Mick Jagger or Bruce Springsteen, where they are seemingly eternally, energetic and youthful and fine. A lot of these guys are gonna, slow down, and they're gonna struggle. And, they need the money, so they still go on tour. It's a sad reality of the business there, Tyler.
Yeah, it really is. And I love that you mentioned Dr. Feelgood, because what I found interesting was when I was like, I always like to try and music prep a little bit for shows. Like, hey, listen to the whole catalog a couple times, like just to get a sense. So I'm not like shocked by new music. And one thing I found was the first rendition of Dr. Feelgood wasn't about drugs. It was about a pimp. And if I got to see if I can find it, because the original demo of Dr. Feelgood was just slightly different, and it was really cool to listen to, because it's not much different, but just like a couple words here and there, and it changes the complete meaning of the song. So that might be something you'd be interested in if I can end up finding it. But yeah, some really, really good stuff from Mötley Crüe overall that night, and it was really great to have that first concert experience be good.
Mm-hmm. And especially with all four guys still there, too, because at this point, Mick Mars had to retire from the band because he's in his 70s, and he's got really bad arthritis. Because these guys are old, I mean, Tommy Lee is the youngest of the original four, and he's 62. And not to mention all of the drugs and the booze they put into their bodies over the years. It's the fact that these guys are still alive even is pretty amazing, Tyler.
Yeah, and Mick Mars isn't with the band anymore, and he's suing them.
Yeah, John Five replaced him there. Yeah, and John Five is great, but it's always annoying when these bands have some sort of fracture over legal issues or whatever. It's always a pain. But anyway, my next pick here, I saw this band in early 2018 when they were touring their album Wonderful Wonderful. This is The Killers, and I picked this song here off that album called The Man.
I don't give a damn. They kiss on the ring. I carry the crown. Nothing can break me down. Don't need no advice. I got a plan. I know the direction, the lay of the land. I know the score like the back of my hand. Them other boys, I don't give a damn. I'm the man. Come round. Nothing can break me down. I'm the man. Come round and nothing can break. You can't break me down. I got gas in the tank. I got money in the bank. I got news for you, baby. You're looking at the man. I got skin in the game. I got a household name. I got news for you, baby. You're looking at the man. When it comes to Friday, I always earn.
Yeah, I love that song. A good strutting song, especially when you're in the supermarket and going down the cereal aisle. I'm the man, run round. Ooh, Fruit Loops, all right. But yeah, similar to Yes, the Killers can swing wildly from synth pop to alt rock to Americana to bombastic glam rock, and I enjoy pretty much all of it. And they put on a damn good live show too. This was at TD Garden, and they played a lot of favorites like of course Mr. Brightside and Somebody Told Me, all these things that I've done. They played songs from this album, which is one of my favorite Killers albums. They did a cover of Just What I Needed by the Cars, because the Cars are from Boston. And it's funny, this song was the second song of the show. And the song starts with this build-up, this doo. And when it got to the ba, all this confetti shot out of the stage and into the crowd. 2 songs in, and there were people around me who had cups of beer, and the confetti was going into their beer. It was pretty funny. But yeah, love the Killers. I'm dying to see them again. And I hope they come around soon, Tyler.
Oh, the Killers is one of those bands, we talked about being homebodies, and they're on the short list of bands where if they come back to Minnesota, I'll actively try to get a ticket. The Killers rule. The first time I was exposed to the Killers was either on Fuse or the Fox teen drama, The OC, where in season 2 they had a bunch of bands. They had Death Cab, Modest Mouse, The Killers, Rooney, a bunch of that era of alternative punk pop kind of bands, and it was a lot of fun to kind of be able to get exposed to some different stuff. And the Killers they're great. I can't say that I remember ever hearing this one, and it was definitely a different vibe than a lot of their big hits, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a jump from their first album, Hot Fuss, to their most recent album, Pressure Machine, in terms of the sound and in terms of what stories they want to tell with their songs. But what's also notable about this show that I went to there, this was the first concert I ever went to at TD Garden. And the first time I had been there in years. I think the last time I was there was for a Celtics game with my dad when I was still in high school. It was the Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Rajon Rondo squad, the holy trio there that won the title. But nowadays, between concerts and wrestling shows, it's the venue I've been to the most. So it's become a second home of sorts, I guess, Tyler.
Oh, that's awesome. Shout out Big Ticket. Kevin Garnett. I don't think this town has ever been happy for anybody who left Minnesota to get a title. I think the entire state jumped up and down when KG got that title with the Celtics. It was a special moment because he didn't want to leave. He knew he had to because Glenn Taylor might be one of the worst owners to have ever owned a sports franchise. It's just insane. The fact that the Lynx are good is not because of Glenn Taylor. But yeah, just shout out the Killers. I like the Killers.
All right. Well, Tyler, what you got next?
So this one is a band called Lacuna Coil. They're out of Italy. And I had the pleasure of seeing them a couple of times because they opened for bands that I ended up just seeing. And I think the first time I saw them was the first time I saw Disturbed. So I saw them twice with Avenged Sevenfold. But before that, I saw them when Killswitch Engage opened for them. And they ended up opening, and I had never heard them, but I came away really impressed. And this song, this was the album that they were touring on, and it's called Survive, and it's the opener on the album, and it's just a tremendous song.
Sometimes I feel alone in a million crowd, an outsider wandering alone without any words to say that can explain this power to overcome the pain. Feel the breath that's always getting away. Am I dreaming it all? I will never be afraid. I'll survive. And there's nothing leading nowhere. I survive. Feeling strong for how much longer I'll survive. And there's nothing leading nowhere. I survive. Survive.
It's such a nice blend of, you get the front woman and she's just got this beautiful melodic voice. It kind of gives me the same vibes that I would get listening to like Flyleaf. And then you have like the much deeper secondary vocalist, and they complement each other so well that later on that same album, they have a song called Spellbound, which was like their big hit off the album. And these guys are just so much fun to listen to because you get different elements in every song. And I had only ever heard them. They have a song on Guitar Hero 2 or Guitar Hero 3, one of the two. And I think that one's Closer. And that was kind of like my only exposure to them. And once I heard them, just a tremendous group with a lot of passion and just little nuances throughout all of their songs that just really keep drawing me back. And that's why, like, I like, you mentioned always making sure that you know when like the main act is hitting the stage. I like to know when the first act is hitting the stage, because sometimes those first acts, like, it can be the first time you hear them before they make it big. And I don't think Lacuna Coil ever made it big in the States, but I'm really glad that I showed up and made sure that I got to listen to them when they were playing, because that album is still in my rotation today, about 17 years later.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I'd like to tip my spaghetti western cowboy hat to Christina Scabbia. Quite the looker, as they say. But no, I also remember Closer from Guitar Hero 3. But the song of theirs that I latched onto a lot more was a song they had in Guitar Hero 4 and Rock Band 2. It was in both. It was a song called Our Truth.
Oh, that song rocks.
Yeah, and that's O-U-R Truth, not Ron Killings, by the way. And I like that song a lot. They also have a good cover of Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode. So yeah, I haven't dived into their work super deep. But if you like your metal to be Italian and Gothic, then this is the band for you, Tyler.
Yeah, it doesn't feel super heavy half the time because she does have this really melodic voice, and she'll have some like aggressiveness to it, but it's nothing like we've listened to of all my previous songs. It's much more light and just inviting, and I think that's why I really appreciate it, because it just feels so genuine, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so my next pick, I saw this band on their second reunion tour. It was also their last tour, the Last Domino tour. It's Genesis. And I picked a song from their big album Invisible Touch. This is Throwing It All Away.
We cannot live together. We cannot live apart. And that's the situation. We knew it from the start. Every time that I look at you, well, I can see the future. 'Cause you know I know, babe, that I don't wanna go. Just throwing it all away, throwing it all away. Is there nothing that I could say to make you change your mind? I watch the world go round and round and see mine turning upside down.
Yeah, just a really heartfelt song there. Another one about the end of a relationship, actually. And, in the context of the show, it took on a little more poignancy because it wasn't just their last tour. I saw them on their last show in the US. So I got in right under the wire, both for the band and for Phil Collins, because he said afterwards he's done with music. And you look at a band like Motley Crue, they're one of those bands who are like, it's our farewell tour, it's the last hurrah, and that ends up being bullshit. The Who have done 17 farewell tours. They're on one right now. They've all been bullshit. With Phil, it can't be bullshit. Like, he slowly limped out on stage with a cane. He sat down the entire show. His voice was fine, but it was 75% of what it was. I can't see him going back on stage. I can't see him going back on his declaration of retirement, especially now, given it's been a few more years, and he's had more health problems, And here's the thing. It was a really good show, too. Like, I mentioned on an episode with Suit Williams last year, despite Phil's physical challenges, he's still Phil Collins. He still has that charm about him and that charisma to him. And the rest of the band was great, too. Phil's son, Nick, was on drums. He's a monster on the drums. Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, Daryl Sturmer, they were all amazing. So yeah, despite Phil's challenges, despite how hard it is to see him like that, to see a guy who had such a vibrant physical spirit and energy to him, to see him, physically humbled like that, it does hurt, but I'm still glad I went. I'm still glad I went to see this band play live before they were done for good, Tyler.
Man, I still remember that Motley Crue retirement, and I thought it was legit because I've seen so many farewell tours, and you're right. It's like pro wrestlers; they're all bullshit except for like Jushin Liger and Sting. Everyone's a carny, and I understand it, but it's also really frustrating because if you're calling it your last, make it be your last. Don't mess with me. And it was really interesting that Motley Crue signed contracts stating this is our final tour. We're never coming back. And then they just burned them. It's like, man, you had the chance to actually be the act that stuck to the retirement. Nope, you couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it. And it is cool that Phil Collins stuck to it. And you got to be at that last American show. That is something cool that you can always hold your hat onto.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I'm such a big Genesis fan. Not only have I seen the actual band, years earlier I went to see a tribute band called the Musical Box, which recreates the stage show of the early prog rock years of the band when Peter Gabriel was there singing lead vocals. And they've got the costumes, they've got the makeup, they've got the effects, they've got like the stage banter. You know, it was amazing. They were just like the band. And then a few years ago, I saw the actual Peter Gabriel in concert. So, you know, I've checked off as many iterations of this band as I can. And that's the thing. Like, if there's a band you really want to see and you have the means to see them, go do so, because, you know, you might not be able to see them again in the future, Tyler, you know?
Absolutely. I think I never really got to see Sting wrestle live, but I did get to see him make a couple of appearances, and I thought that was really cool. Like, all right, I got to see Sting. Like, my wrestling fandom feels a little bit more complete now, but it's kind of the same thing there. Like I've never been the biggest like Genesis fan, but I love a lot of their music, if that makes any sense. Like, as we go into like, because I initially sent you 8 and then like another like 10 extra songs, and you picked out a couple of them. One of them was like Disturbed's cover Land of Confusion, to me is one of the best covers of all time.
Yeah, great cover. Yeah.
It didn't stray from what Phil Collins and Genesis had from it, but you also felt like Disturbed had their own spin. It was just so well done. But that was not one of the songs that you picked, and I'm very intrigued as to, I want to ask you this: the 2 songs that you did pick, why you picked those? Because they're probably the most out there songs of everything I've got.
Oh, I just wanted some variety there, to be honest with you, because, you know, after the 7th or 8th screamo song or metalcore song or whatever, like, yeah, there had to be some counterbalance to the rock and metal that we both picked, you know? So
that's a good point.
Yeah, safe to say your second to last pick here, Tyler, is of a different variety than what we've had so far.
It's a very different variety. This is why I didn't get to go to All In, because the same night of the original All In, I was at US Bank Stadium watching Taylor Swift. And this is one of my favorite songs of hers on an album that seems that most Swifties just don't like very much. When I don't really care. I like it. It's off Reputation. It's called Getaway Car.
The ties were black, the lies were white, in shades of gray and candlelight. I wanted to leave him, I needed a reason. X marks the spot where we fell apart. He poisoned the well, I was lying to myself. I knew it from the first, old-fashioned, we were cursed. We never had a shotgun shot in the dark. You were driving the getaway car, we were flying, but we never get far. Don't pretend it's such a mystery. Think about the place where you first met me. Riding in a getaway car, there were sirens in the beat of your heart. Should've known I'd be the first to leave. Think about the place where you first met me. In a getaway car, no, they never get far. No, nothing good starts in a getaway car. Great escape, the prison break, the light of freedom.
This was a really interesting album from Taylor, because she really tried to dive more into the modern pop elements of music at the time, which was a lot more electronic based, and really try to kind of open herself up to a lot of differences and uniqueness within music. I really enjoyed the album. It's not ones that a lot of like Taylor Swift fans seem to really like. My wife doesn't like this album very much, but this song always stood out to me. It feels like it has a lot of different elements as far as lyrically, because like the getaway car, it's almost like you're talking about a robbery, but you're also talking about a love story, and everything kind of intertwines together. Like my wife and I, our first dance at our wedding, which unfortunately was during the pandemic, we danced to Enchanted, which was a very, very wedding-ish kind of song, but we kind of just bonded over listening to a lot of Taylor Swift. And I don't like country music, but for some reason, I've always liked her. And I think the main reason why I've always liked her is because what I talked about earlier. You always felt like you were getting a piece of Taylor when you listened to her music. There was always passion and love behind everything she did. And you still get that today. And then obviously the Eras tour just ended, and it's the most successful tour in the history of music. But this song has always just been a favorite because it just feels comforting for some reason. Maybe it's because of a lot of my love of emo music and stuff, and it just kind of encapsulates a lot of unique feelings.
I'll be honest, when I saw you put this song among your others on your list or whatever, I assumed, given your musical proclivities, that you were dragged to this show kicking and screaming. I know you were probably upset not to go to All In, but it sounds like you weren't as grumpy as I assumed you would have been, Tyler.
My only grumpiness was because I couldn't go to or watch All In live, but I was very happy to go to the show. It was a lot of fun. Well, we bought the tickets before All In was even announced.
Ooh.
And it happened to be on the same day, and I was pissed. But it was a very, very good show. Pop shows are just different. The day after my birthday, my wife and I had been dating about 6 weeks at the time. She took me to Jingle Ball, which was, I think it's iHeart now, but at the time it was Clear Channel. It was like a traveling concert where everybody would sing like 2 to 3 songs, and then Fall Out Boy was the headliner, and they did a 6-song set. Half the crowd left for Fall Out Boy, which I'm like, you guys all suck. But it's just different going to a pop show, and that kind of was my first experience ever at a pop show than like a rock and roll show, because there's just different elements of showmanship. And it was really cool to see Taylor in that element, because she's got a lot of showmanship where it's just different. The pyro, the lights, the stage, how they move. And it was arguably the best concert I'd been to. And I did have a lot of fun. And my best friend's wife, shout out Jamie, she was 8.5 months pregnant going up and down those incredibly steep stairs at US Bank Stadium.
Yeah, I think with most rock shows, unless it's like an Alice Cooper or someone like that, it's just going to be the band on stage playing their music. But if you have a Taylor Swift or Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Beyonce, Madonna, one of these big pop icons, the show's going to be a big to-do. There's going to be dancers and choreography and costume changes galore and pyro and ballyhoo and all this crazy stuff, because the shows are just these massive spectacles. Look at the Eras tour. For all of the commercial success and all of the hype and mania surrounding that tour, the show itself was quite big and quite grand. I think ultimately you were better off seeing Taylor in 2018 as opposed to on the Eras tour, because chances are you wouldn't have been able to see her anyway on the Eras tour, because the tickets went so quickly. And they went for so much money, obscene amounts of money, on the resellers market. So, it's good you saw her when you did. And yeah, going to the first All In would have been cool, but it's not the end of the world that you didn't. Sometimes it's okay to put wrestling on the back burner and put other hobbies first. It's totally understandable, Tyler.
Don't worry. I got home and I watched 0 Hour, and then I passed out and I watched the whole show in the morning. So I didn't miss it.
Well, that's good to know. And congrats, by the way, of course, to Taylor and her beau, Travis Kelce, on their engagement. I look forward to even more nonstop coverage of their relationship, because between the NFL season and her new album and the wedding season, this saga will just keep on rolling for as long as we're alive, I think, Tyler.
I would high recommend you listen to her episode of New Heights that she did with Travis and Jason. It's very good. And she has a few really good one-liners in there. She's like, me being on the show, it gives what every NFL wants to see, more of me on their TV. Like, just everything about her just feels so genuine, and just like she's just a good person. Like, she's the kind of person like I want to like double date with her and Travis, because I think they just seem like good, nice people. And you don't often get that from like celebrity couples. They just feel like good people.
And they'll probably pick up the bill, which is also pretty cool.
Yes.
All right, so my second to last pick here. This is a band I've seen 3 times, and I'm going to go with the song that they did on their most recent show that I was at. This is Gorillaz, and this is a song featuring a singer named Fatoumata Diawara. This is off of the album Song Machine Season 1 Strange Times. This is Désolé. That's a groovy little number there. Fatoumata Diawara is from Mali. This was my first time hearing her ever, and I was just enraptured by her voice. I think the song would be fine without her, but she really elevates it and brings the whole thing together, I think. And like I said, this was my 3rd time seeing Gorillaz, and a lot of their songs have guests on them, guest singers, guest rappers. And oftentimes, they'll play a song, and if there's a guest on the song, they'll play the vocal track of the guest while the band plays live on stage. Now, sometimes the guest actually shows up, like when they did Feel Good Inc., De La Soul was there, doing the song on stage with them. And I'll never forget, they start playing Désolé, and Diawara comes out on stage, "Hello, everybody!" And it took my brain, like, 10 seconds to register, oh my God, that's actually her. She's here. It was a really cool moment. And one of the reasons I've seen Gorillaz as often as I have is because you'll never know who shows up, Tyler.
Gorillaz rules. And they were one of the first bands to me that I ended up finding, because one of the, I'm not going to call it a difficulty, but one of the challenges I think I had growing up was I didn't have high-speed internet, so I didn't get to like explore like stuff like LimeWire back in the day to try and find new music. It was pretty much whatever my friends had, and then me watching Fuse, which I did like religiously at like 14, 15 years old. So when I heard Gorillaz, it was awesome because they were challenging a lot of the like paradigm standards of what music was, because they were incorporating so many different elements. And like Feel Good Inc. was like the mainstream breakout for them. But to me, Clint Eastwood is one of my favorite songs ever, because it's so different, but it flows perfectly, and you get a lot of really good elements across the board. I love that Gorillaz has always tried to challenge things, but they've always felt like kind of, for lack of a better term, true to themselves, where being true to themselves really feels like just doing what feels right and challenging the paradigm itself. And I've always really appreciated listening to them. well, I think the last album I listened to was Plastic Beach, and I enjoyed that. This one, I don't think I've heard this song in years, and it was different than a lot of the Gorillaz stuff out there, but in a good way. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after that third show, I made a list of all the different Gorillaz songs I've seen them play live, and it was quite a big list, actually, because they tend to mix and match the set list each tour. They're not one of these bands that does the same 12 or 13 song set lists every time. They tend to, change it up there. And speaking of which, and speaking of guest performances at Gorillaz shows, the first one I went to was in 2017, and they played a song called Ticker Tape, which is a bonus track on the album Humans with Carly Simon on it. And halfway through the song, this lady comes out on stage, and once again, my brain takes a second to be like, that's Carly Simon, because she lives in Martha's Vineyard. So that was pretty neat too. And I do want to tell one more story here about a surprise guest. I didn't pick this band for the episode, but I saw Foo Fighters at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
And there was a picture of Joe Walsh's face on Taylor Hawkins' drum kit. And I thought, well, that's pretty weird, but okay. And halfway through the show, Dave Grohl goes, all right, we're going to bring in a special guest for this next song. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be crazy if it was Joe Walsh? And then Dave goes, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Walsh. And my brain exploded. Like, it was crazier than the Gronk to me that I had thought Joe Walsh and then he showed up. I mean, I'm sure having Joe Walsh's face on the drum kit kind of, was a bit of mental suggestion of sorts, but still, it was a wild moment for sure, Tyler.
That's awesome. Foo Fighters is one on the short list of bands that I want to go see, but have not been able to at this time.
Yeah, they're awesome live, definitely. All right, Tyler, it's time for your last pick, and this is also a very different style of music for you.
No, it's a very different one. This is it's a complicated song for a couple of reasons, and we'll get into why. But this is Ludacris with "Pimpin' All Over the World."
You know who we are, 'cause we're pimping all over the world. The fancy cars, the women and the caviar. You know who we are, 'cause we're pimping all over the world.
You hear the song, so dance. Don't always think I'm trying to get in your pants. Cause see me, my pimpin's in 3D. I'm taking you places you only see on TV. Trying to show you how you live in this trife. How many guys you know could bring the Travel Channel to life? One day we on the Autobahn swerving, driving. Next day we in the sun on the Virgin Islands. If you with me, ain't no time to sleep. Especially at Wet Willie's on Miami Beach. But I'll drop you off and pay you no attention if I make it to Atlanta's Bronner Brothers convention. Then jump in the car and just ride for hours, making sure I don't miss the homecoming at Howard. Hawaii to DC is plenty women to see. So if your don't show up, it's more women for me. Hey. Oh yeah.
The fancy cars, the women and the caviar. You know who we are, 'cause we're pimping all over the world.
This is a really interesting song, and I like to kind of think of it as like a time and place, because I don't think you could talk about pimping all over the world and release that in 2025. You could do that in 2004. And to me, it's a little bit of a nostalgic song because like Bobby Valentino's the other voice in there, and he's got a beautiful voice, and the beat has always been nice. I always kind of resonated with that, and I listened to it like nonstop because I used to spend afternoons outside and on the trampoline. I would just listen to the local pop station KDWB all the time, and this song was a huge hit at that time, and it's got this odd mix of, like, it's, I don't really know how to describe it. And I'm not the best person to do so, but it like misogyny, and also like he's trying to empower Black women. Just a really odd song, but it encapsulates what kind of the mid 2000s were when it came to rap music, and so much of it was about like like kind of almost like demeaning women and talking about like how attractive they are and stuff. Where a lot of the stuff that I've really gravitated towards is like, I like Lupe Fiasco a lot, where he's just rapping about real stuff. But this song has always been a favorite because of not necessarily what the lyrics are. It's just lyrics aren't great, but I really enjoy the beat. I've always enjoyed like Ludacris's presentation. He's got great flow. His diction with how he presents his rap has always been really crisp, clear, and he's got a unique voice in his own right, to where this has always stood out as a really, really good song, but one that you need to kind of look at from a lens of place and time.
Yeah, I like this one too. I like the beat and the vocals from Bobby Valentino for sure, and I also like the cameo from Cat Williams towards the end there, because the pimp thing is his whole gimmick there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like this one. It did remind me as well that Ludacris isn't just the guy from the Fast and the Furious movies. He's also a very prominent rapper, so it was good to remember that too. But yeah, we're certainly going out on a very distinct note for you here, Tyler. On my part, because I did pick the song here, but definitely ending your list on a high note for sure.
Yeah, this was the first ever rap show I had been to, and I had a chance to see. Have you ever heard of Atmosphere?
I don't think so. No.
So they're a local rap group out of Minneapolis, and they've kind of gotten mainstream, but at the same time, they're also kind of underground. They're in like that weird middle portion, but they do a rap show called Soundset every year, where they've headlined with like Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg and stuff. Like big names come out for it. But this Ludacris and T-Pain was the first one, and it's so weird going to one of those shows because it's basically a clip show, because they're in so many songs, but they only do a verse. And you don't, and then if they have a song that's theirs, but then they have somebody else do a verse, they kind of cut it short. So it was very interesting to go to this show because you didn't get whole songs from like T-Pain. You got more, but Ludacris, it was a lot of clips, and it was almost like going to a comedy show without comedy, but instead it was rap, where you had him linking things together by talking to the crowd. It was very odd in that sense, but it was a cool experience to get to see him, because I've always appreciated Ludacris's just natural abilities as a performer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never been to a rap concert. Big shocker, I know. But from what I've heard, they can be rather hit or miss. Like I've heard a bunch of horror stories about, guys showing up late, leaving 4 songs in, low effort, terrible sound quality. But again, to bring it back to Gorillaz, there's been live rapping at shows that I've been to of theirs, De La Soul, Vince Staples, Booty Brown, and they've all been great. So I guess I've lucked out in that regard, Tyler. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit.
All right, so my last pick is the band I've seen most recently. I saw them for the 3rd time about a month ago. This is Ghost, and this is the last song they played on the show off of their EP Pope Star. This is Square Hammer. So if you were to ask, like, what is the Ghost song, this would be it. I know Mary on a Cross got really big on TikTok, but this feels like the band's signature song. Not saying it's everybody's favorite, but this captures everything about the band in one song, I think. It's heavy, it's got dark imagery and the devil and all that good stuff, but there's also the pop element as well, with the big juicy chorus that people sing along to, and the keyboards, the vocal harmonies, the refrain, Right Here, Right Now. That's the name of their concert movie, spelled R-I-T-E here, R-I-T-E now. It's funny, the first time I saw Ghost live, they opened for Maiden, and this was their opener because the song was still fairly new. But since then, it's become the show closer. It's the last song of the encore, and it just feels right. It's that much of a crowd pleaser. So, yeah, I spent a lot of that Ghost show singing along, and this was no different. This song is amazing, Tyler.
This was a good song to end on. I enjoyed it. I can't say I've really ever delved into Ghost, but I think this is why once you sent me your list, I was like, ooh, I don't know a lot of this. This will be good because I kind of just stay in my own lane when I do listen to music. It's just, hey, this is what I know, this is what I like, and I'm happy with it because it's stuff I know I like. So being able to venture out and get different experiences is always a good thing. And I really liked every song you put out here today.
Well, thank you. I must have good taste then to get the seal of approval from you there. So,
well, hey, if I didn't like it, I wouldn't blow smoke up your ass. I'd just tell you I didn't like this. No, it was all really good stuff.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, but about this Ghost show, this is the first show I went to where you weren't allowed to have your phones out. They had those pouches where you put your phone in, and you carry the pouch with you. And if you wanted to take it out again, you had to go back out to the concourse and go to a special area where you could unlock the pouch. And I thought it made the show better because instead of everybody having their phones up filming and looking through their screens the whole time, they were actually watching the show. You know, it's very refreshing. And really, you know, I know we all take photos and videos when we go to shows. How often do we look at those things? Like, for me, it's never. You know, I take the photos, I take the videos, I never look at them ever again. They just sit on my phone. So, you know, it feels like something to do, and then once you don't do it, you realize you don't need to do it at all. So, yeah, it was really, really cool to experience the show like that, Tyler.
That rules. You're right. Nobody watches that, just like nobody's ever going to watch your fireworks videos that you post on social media. I think a couple pictures is fine because, hey, you know, it's cool to like look back at a picture, but is anybody going to look back and watch a 5-minute performance of a song? No, unless it's special, unless they have like some kind of like where at the Blink-182 show, they had the drum kit with Travis Barker and they suspended him in midair. And Tommy Lee at one point during a Motley Crue show did his drum kit on like a roller coaster. Like, okay, that kind of stuff is cool to film. Otherwise, no, nobody cares. Like, I agree. I think that's a really cool gimmick that the people promoting the Ghost show decided to do. 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. Well, all right. Those were our picks. That was the episode. And Tyler, man, hell of a debut for you here. Knocked it out of the park. So much great conversation and fun memories and stories of going to shows. So, yeah, man, thanks for being here. This was a ton of fun.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this too. I do a lot of audio for work and stuff. And obviously I host Good and Bad and the Hungy, which is a little more sporadic now than it used to be just because of how in depth my work has gotten. But I don't get a lot of opportunities to do something like this where I can just sit down and have like a conversation about stuff that I don't have to care about for work purposes. I love football, but this was such a breath of fresh air and a lot of fun. Like this was probably the most fun I've had doing audio in a while. So thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And I appreciate the kind words. Absolutely. Any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter or the Bluesky at The Real Forno. And I obviously am a football beat writer. I covered the Minnesota Vikings, Florida Gators, and NFL draft for the media company A to Z Sports at atozsports.com. And I host my own Vikings show as well, The Real Forno Show, on the Vikings First and Goal YouTube channel and podcast feed. And if you love AEW, The Good, the Bad, and the Hungry with me and Fred Moreland, where we do a lot of yelling about stupid Tony Khan things, but we also do a lot of yelling because Tony Khan rules. It's a fun show, and we're nothing but honest. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy my time.
All right, and of course, Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network for this show, for Tyler's show, for all the shows on there, voicesofwrestling.com, previews, reviews, articles, all that good stuff. Bluesky at Music of the Mat, and at Just Andrew on Bluesky. If you want to leave a comment about this episode, share your picks, share your memories of going to shows, voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. That's also where I post the Spotify playlist for each episode. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast player of choice, and leave a nice rating and review. All right, so I picked one of Tyler's extra songs for the play out here. And I went with a band that you mentioned earlier there, Tyler, Fall Out Boy. Sugar, We're Going Down. Before we play it, though, do you have any memories, any fun stories from that event?
Yeah, two quick hitters. One, my wife had food poisoning on the way to the show, but she was not going to be denied being able to see Kesha. And Kesha was very good. I will give her that. And this was like post all the sexual assault allegations with the one producer. So she was in a really good headspace at the time. And two, I'll never forget, I'm sitting next to these, my wife now, obviously, she was on my left, but on the right, there were these two like 15, 16-year-old girls. And one of them just puts her coat in my lap expecting me to hold it. And it was very weird. And right after that, a guy locks eyes with me. He's like, "You get dragged here too?" And I was willing. I'm like, and I just kind of played along. I'm like, yeah. He's like, "Don't worry, we got Fall Out Boy coming up." And then when Fall Out Boy hit, half of those teeny boppers were already gone. And we locked eyes and we're like, just nodded our heads like, yep, this was worth it. Fall Out Boy rules. And that was my Jingle Ball experience. My now wife dealing with food poisoning the entire time so she could see Kesha. That was a really cool memory.
Get out of here, you damn kids. I'm trying to enjoy Dance Dance. Come on now. But but all right, yeah. Again, this is our playout song. This is off the album From Under the Cork Tree. It's Fall Out Boy with Sugar, We're Going Down. Thanks again, Tyler.
Thank you.
Music of the Mat is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Hi, I'm Andrew Rich, and if you're like me, you look at the state of modern wrestling discourse and think, wow, what a cesspool. That's why I'm here to tell you about Music of the Mat Remix. That's right, your favorite wrestling music podcast is back with a new format, where I bring on a guest and we play songs related to wrestling-themed topics. It could be a wrestling reference, a wrestling concept, a wrestling pun, things of that nature. Now you might be saying, Andrew, that is a very, very tenuous connection to pro wrestling. on a wrestling podcast network. Is this just an excuse to hang out with your friends and talk about music and ignore the rest of the wrestling landscape? Yes. Yes, it is. So listen to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast player of choice.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I am the host of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, a show right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we take a deep look at individual issues and stories that are going on in the wrestling world. Each episode is about a different topic, and we take a thorough and educated look at things ranging from current booking trends to breakdowns on individual performers and angles to investigations into different fan cultures across the industry. In addition, we keep a close eye on the wrestling media, and as a professional journalist, I bring a unique perspective to how current issues in wrestling are being covered and discussed through the wrestling media. We have a revolving series of guests from across wrestling punditry joining us on each episode, and we hope that you make the choice to give us a listen on wherever you get your podcast from.